What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale coming at you with the one, the only, the certified fantabulous Mr. Grant Hughes. We are gathered here today to play NBA Fact or Fiction. Felt like a good way to tackle some current events, what we've seen going around in the hashtag discourse, but also just some post All-Star break, later season developments or conversation topics that are floating around out there as well. We don't even need to get into the criteria or how we develop fact or fiction. Do we believe it or do we not? It's pretty simple. And so with that, fact or fiction, Grant, how are you doing? Is it good? I'm going to say Grant, fact or fiction. Grant is doing well.
Yeah.
NBA fact or fiction.
That's a fact. I apologize to absolutely nobody for doing well. That's Spoelstra. Have you seen the clip of that? You must have by now.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
It's badass.
It's pretty great. Like, I just thank you for that. How are you doing? I'll turn it around on you.
Look, I was whining to you about how I'm so much of an adult that I messed up my wrist the other night, and it's just thrown off we're recording this on a Friday for a Saturday, and it's just thrown off this happened Thursday night. It's thrown off my entire day and probably weekend. I'm just so grumpy about it. If I have to move around workouts, it's a bad time for me. So I'm cranky at the moment, which means all my takes are probably going to be, I'm going to skew towards the most negative reactions possible, I think, or what's coming.
Great. We have Cranky Dan ready to just proclaim fact or fiction. Do you want to start? Do you want to pick the first one? I'm eyeballing one.
I think we have to start with a specific one anyway. I don't know if I'll pick it.
Okay.
Fact or fiction, Grant? Bam Adebayo's 83-point game was less ethical than Kobe Bryant's 81-point game. Frame it however you want. It was bad for the league. He should have stopped at 81 as a tribute to Kobe because everything is needs to be a tribute to Kobe for some reason. Fact or fiction?
I mean, it's fiction. So we haven't really talked about this. When I saw the little crawl about it, I wasn't watching that game. I really couldn't process it. It's because I don't know how to categorize this among other anomalous scoring outbursts like this, other than to say it's got to be the weirdest one for so many reasons. The first reason is that it's Bam Adebayo, which is anyone who's listened to us for any amount of time know we're both in the bag for Bam. We think he's great. We love him. We're higher on him than basically everybody. But for him, I think I texted you, if you'd given me 50 guesses of who'd scored 83 points, Bam would not have been among those guesses. And I was texting with somebody else and said the same thing. And the response was he wouldn't have been in my top 100, which is not a knock on Bam. It's just that he's not the type of player that you would expect to have a scoring outburst like that. So that makes it weird. The fact that it's against the Wizards makes it weird because what is that team? The fact that it's a Heat player that did it is also weird because the Heat are all about all the right things. And if you're of the belief that this is an unethical thing, well, this is the wrong thing. Oh, the Heat should be above that. Heat culture, all that stuff is just weird. That's not a value judgment on is it good or bad or anything. It's just this was a deeply strange occurrence that even when we get some distance from it and you see the leaderboard for single game scoring posted in the future, you're going to see his name at number 2 and I will still do a massive double take. What are your thoughts on it before we'll get to the value judgment of it? Because that's what the fact or fiction is focused on. But I want to know what your takeaway is just in general, because we haven't talked about it.
I was shocked that it was him, but it was an objectively cool moment. You're cutting away from the Peacock game to go look at Heat Wizards.
Right.
No, that game was circled on basically nobody's calendar to actually watch. And it was only...
It was an immediate skip for me because it's the Wizards and it's late in the season. I'm not watching that game.
When there's better alternatives on, for sure. And the other part is even when I had seen that he had 34 points in the first quarter, it was okay. And then you saw kind of what was going on at halftime. And I didn't tune in until the midway of the fourth quarter. And then I went back and watched a lot of everything that he did there after the fact. That was so cool though. You scored 83 points. And it was, when you go back and watch, and this now kind of gets into the ethicality of it, the first quarter was just Bam on fire.
Yep.
5 3-pointers. And then like throughout the rest of the game, the rest of his touches, they were just like, yeah, they're especially in the fourth quarter. What do you have? 16 free throws. I think that's what people are going to harp on is the
Right.
40 plus free
Right.
throws. But,
Record
like,
attempts and makes in a single
Right.
game, which is that's the weirdest part. I forgot to mention that. That's the weirdest part of the whole thing, that he took 43 free throws.
Right. And then like it doesn't look 7 of 22 from 3. No, that doesn't look super efficient. But like for the first, I don't know, more than half of that game, it was a lot of, like the Wizards were the Wizards. And it was when I recalled seeing them be more aggressive against him than they actually were for a lot. Like there was like a baseline trap that they had that I didn't understand. I think it was in the start of the third quarter or whatever it was. But then like by the end of the game, they're triple teaming him like on the inbounds because they're clearly trying to stop it from happening. I think that element of it is cool. And you could quibble with some of the fouls, might have felt a little ticky-tack, but like he's going right at them. They're moving their feet. And but what I was actually trying to say is during the meat and potatoes of that game, Bam was just overpowering everybody that was kind of on him. And he actually, Alex Sarr, I thought at points like did okay. And the most egregious fouling came not from Alex Sarr in that game, but it's like Tristan Vukcevic isn't going to stand a chance against him. Anthony Gill isn't going to stand a chance against him. He had a couple just left-handed drives from the wing or the baseline. And it was just this, like Bam was like in his attack mode bag that night. And this is also coming, was it last week or 2 weeks ago where he basically said, I'm tired of being in the fucking play-in. And so it was kind of cool that it dovetailed with, well, is this just his moment of I'm going to get it? Really, though, the first half was, when you go back and watch what he was able to do there, nothing about that felt like you could sense that, we might be on our way to like sort of a special night from him. But that just sort of felt like basketball being played and Bam was dominating, at least for me.
Yeah. I think anyone that is really bent out of shape about this game for ethical reasons or like integrity of competition, any of the high-minded sort of criticisms, or the idea that this particular thing like flies in the face of some set of norms that are sacred, is anyone who thinks that is totally ignoring the fact that anytime you have a game like this, insofar as ever just to say like a record-setting or record-threatening game, or just particularly like just a wild scoring night, it's always a little weird. There's always some element of teammates feeding a player the ball that they wouldn't otherwise. Like some of the purer aspects of the game competitively do get compromised. Kobe's 81 was not dissimilar. It's just like the Lakers, like no one else was going to shoot in that game. And it was just, it turned into something other than basketball. Klay Thompson, when he set the record for 14 threes, the Warriors were fouling. Like it was just, every time there's something like this, there's shenanigans, because you can't score 83 points in a modern NBA game without shenanigans. You can't make 15 threes without shenanigans. You can't, if someone was like threatening 40 rebounds or something, his teammates would get out of the way so he could get the 40th rebound.
Would they miss their own free throws like
this kind of game? Yeah.
Would they miss
this is the nature of this kind of game. It's ridiculous. So
can I interject with a stat just to back up what you said? This is not from me. This is from @StatCenter. He wrote, in Wilt's 100-point game, Philly was letting New York score quickly in the fourth quarter so they could get the ball back and feed the big man. Kobe took 13 of LA's 17 field goal attempts and all 13 of their free throw attempts in the fourth quarter to get to 81. And they just closed by saying, no one's ever scored 70 plus, quote unquote, ethically. What Bam did is insane and joyous, which I think is just, those are facts backing up. But the other thing I'd like to note, but before you go on, did you see a lot of, like, I guess I still in my own silo that I saw the Sam Amick take from The Athletic that he should have stopped at Kobe's 81, which all the respect in the world for the stuff that Sam Amick does. That's one of the most asinine takes.
Disagree.
Flat out disagree. But I didn't see I saw a lot of people trolling the idea that it was unethical more than I did, which I should have started the conversation with, to where, was this an actual discussion? I'm sure in corners of the internet or sports talk radio, but I didn't see I saw a lot of people celebrating it or trolling the idea that you wouldn't celebrate it.
This is like such a statement on the modern condition of media consumption and the need to perpetuate news cycles, because I think you're exactly right. There was a straw man construction of the uptight basketball purist knocking this to a much greater degree than there was an actual vocal reaction that matched that. Like that, it was easy to do the Sports Center or the talking head show clip where you set up oppositional sides of like somebody has to say that this was unethical or this was besmirched the game somehow, just so someone else can say all the things we just said. It's just like I don't know what the percentages would be, but the percentage of sincere outrage versus this was cool. And a lot of times when this happens, it's a little weird. It's got to be like 10 to 90. I think there's just an overwhelming majority that are saying the things that we're saying to this extent of this is cool. Nothing sacred here. Anyone else that's ever come close to this has kind of bullshitted around to get there too. It's cool. Like it's not the end of the world. I think that's the vast majority of people, but because it's a huge news story, you have to set up this like concocted, adversarial debate about it. I think you're right to have that intuition that nobody's really that mad about it.
And what would let's say he shot like 20 free throws or something. Do you think then presumably the discourse would have been, well, he took too many threes, or like, because if he's not making those free throws, they're probably coming from it. Just there would have been ways to poke holes. What is the ethical way to get to and this isn't technically unethical. But at the same time, what would have been the quote unquote ethical way to even get to this? Because I think people would have said he either had the ball he could have scored it all on 2-pointers. Would that have made it and very minimal free throws? Does that make it ethical? Or did it need to come against a top 10 defense? Did he need to, and I don't know what the ethical way would have been. Like even in people's trying to map out the scenario where this was so wholesome that there was only a 1% percent of people figuring out a way to discredit it.
Exactly. What does it look like if he gets 83 and nobody has for a second the thought of, well, that was kind of, let's throw some asterisks up there. It's the Wizards, all the free throws, like all that's like, what's that even look like? The only way I could see that happening is if it's a quadruple overtime game or something like that. And then there's asterisks.
You discredit it based on that.
So basically, can we say fact or fiction, no one will ever score 80 points without some measure of, again, vocal minority, but some measure of like a little side eye being aimed at it. Yeah.
Yeah. What is that? Is the game, and then let's say regulation, this final score is probably like 172 to 169 or something, and people are going to be defense was played, or what happened to the game that like, why is the score so high? You wouldn't be able to win in that scenario. I think it was cool. I think overall it was good for the end because it was just this moment. And if you're going to keep the season as long as it is, and you're going to complain about the quality, like, what's the point?
Let us have this. Let us have one of these every once in a while.
And what is the point of I didn't understand and even Sam Amick acknowledged in his piece that maybe this is rooted in nostalgia, which is also, that's a different type of question. I think we have a fact or fiction topic that kind of steps on the toes of it a little bit. So I recognize that part, but I just don't, what are we doing? You had a chance to go in the record books, but directly behind Wilt. And it's also just because no one really saw Wilt's 100-point game. Like you're now this, go ahead.
I was just saying, aren't there, who knows, right? But I really do feel like I've come across several questions about the actual, like, was it actually 100? Because, box scores then, just looking at like, it's some dude with a pencil, considering the era, that's like writing things down on the sideline. And so assist totals and rebound totals are nuts. Like assist inflation was happening in Utah 25 years ago or 30 years. Like it's not that old of a thing. So throw that in there too. Like, I don't know that anyone to 100% degree of certainty could say that he actually scored 100 points. So just, it's all of these things are, there's no perfect record, right? I think any crazy high total in any statistical category is going to be questionable in some regard.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a, like, I don't even know what the example would be of some kind of record that nobody has any issue with. Is it, I don't know, Jordan never lost a finals?
Do you think
I
people,
guess, like, that's
just as a high profile example, should there be an issue with LeBron being the all-time leading scorer? What would be he played too many seasons? As if that's like he should have retired after year 15.
You're going to find what you want, I guess, maybe is the other thing. And particularly for this one, the fact that it's a Kobe record that is now diminished. There's like his fandom is a little different than a lot of player fan bases. So there's that part of it too.
Why don't you take us to our next fact or fiction topic?
All right. We could. So we kind of covered the other Bam one. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna go with fact or fiction. Dan, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the NBA's best player. Different than, and that's a critical distinction, because I don't think either of us had a problem with him winning MVP last year, but I think we both, as sort of in a way that represents popular opinion, would have still said Nikola Jokic is the best player in the best player in the world. I know I've said it 100 times on this podcast. So are we at a point now where, yeah, Shai is going to win MVP almost certainly? Can we get rid of the caveat now? Is he actually the MVP and he is also the best player in the world?
I can't get there. Right. I just think that Jokic's impact on the game is so transcendent when you look at what he does for those around him. And it's not to say that Shai is not a transcendent basketball player. When you look at just the way that his shot profile has changed a little bit, like the way that he's able to get to his three-pointer this year, the passing this year, the fact that we mentioned this last year, we've mentioned it this year, he is an active participant. He's not a net. It's not just he's not a net negative. He's a active participant in just what is the NBA's most terrifying defense, and maybe one of the most terrifying defenses of all time. I think there's a debate to be had there. But when I look at what Jokic does and the way that he just sort of dissects the game, and he's I don't want to say he's not fully appreciated. He's clearly fully appreciated. But the things that he does, where it's also like, we don't talk about how efficiently he just scores from basically every level, or the level of difficulty on his shots. It always kind of boils down to the passing or the on-off splits, which I think is fair. But like, that dude is also himself, maybe this isn't the best season to say about the Nuggets writ large, but one of the most clutch players that we've seen at scores that we've seen of this era as well. And qualitatively, I think when you look at the depth that the Nuggets have had around him, this is not, if you want to get in, does this matter for MVP? I don't know what other player in the league could take this same quality of supporting cast, because if you're building around Shai versus Jokic, it's a fundamentally different position. So the teams are going to look different. But if you take qualitatively the same kind of talent around them, I don't know that he is able to carry, I don't think any other player is able to carry, whether it's Luka, whether it's Anthony Edwards, whether it's Cade Cunningham at this point. Like, I don't think they're able to carry that cast to the levels that Jokic has explored. We're not even talking about this season when he's missed a bunch of time. Like this, when you're talking about the best player in the NBA or the best player in the world, I don't think, what is that, a 3, 4? Like, how many seasons are you talking about? Because the MVP award is kind of, it's not always going to go. We said it last year. Shai won. We thought, I think we both actually had Jokic as our MVP, but it was just understood that with the LeBron era too, when he didn't win an MVP, it was just understood that like he is still the best player in the world.
Charles Barkley won an MVP when Michael Jordan was playing. Karl Malone won an MVP. Like, it happens all the time where we just say like, well, okay, cool, but like, come on, we all know who the guy is. I feel like is kind of the sentiment, right?
Right, and I don't loathe this discussion, but I hate that you spend the time saying, well, like Shai is just not going to be able to do what we've seen Jokic do over the past 3 to 4 years. And there's really no way to know for sure, because he shouldn't be penalized because OKC has been so deep. They've also been incredibly injured themselves, and you can make the case, and especially this season, you should make the case, he's never had a number 2 option like Jamal Murray on the team. Like, this season, quite literally, his number 2 option basically has hardly ever been available when you look at J-Dub. So I don't like coming at it from this perspective because it's a hedge. If you think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the best player in the world, not just the MVP, I think when you still look at I know he missed some time, but the minutes discrepancies between him and Jokic and just some of the Shai clutch stuff, like he's going to win MVP. He will probably be my MVP pick when we do our awards at the end of the season. But when it comes to the best player in the world, I'm not going to say Jokic has reached the LeBron default territory for me, but they're still just, look at what we were discussing, was it a week ago or 2 ago, where Jokic has come back. He hasn't necessarily looked like Jokic. There's been some more turnover stuff. He hasn't been through that stretch as efficient. And it was just, oh, the Nuggets are 10 points better per 100 possessions with him on the court. I'm not saying Shai couldn't do that, but like there is a level of defaultism there for me because of what Jokic has done over really longer than this, but the past half decade for sure.
Yeah, so I'm actually, it'll be a little bit of a cop out, but I think today, right now, Shai is better than Jokic. And I think a lot of that has to do with since coming back from the knee injury, Jokic, the defense just has been a real negative. I think in a lot of instances, he just hasn't been quite as good. And I think it was close enough to where, like, if I get to narrow the lens and focus on today or the last 2 weeks or the last month or whatever, I do think Shai has been better than him. So, we woke up this morning and I think it's fair to say that Shai is the best player in the world right now. If Jokic is back to like apex form, and again, Jokic is a little older too, so it's possible that apex form starts to mean something different as we go forward for him, maybe. But if he's back to the best version of himself, I think I would probably say that Jokic is the best player in the world. I have to narrow it so tightly because it's super close, and I don't think it's unfair to say that at the moment it does seem to be Shai. But then, like you're talking about, is it a half decade span? Is it the last 3 years or whatever? I think Jokic still has it, but in the moment, I'm much more comfortable than I've ever been saying that Shai has it. It could go away. It's that close, I think, and I don't know. It makes me uncomfortable because it is hard to discount all of the standard arguments for Jokic, the team lifting capacity that he has, and the just total control and the unique passing of all the stuff we always talk about when we discuss him. Shai just feels better at the moment.
He is a killer, and
I don't know. I'm more open to this idea than I've ever been. Basically, is where I'd leave it.
Yeah, and maybe then I'm looking at it the wrong way because if you were counting like multi-year windows, it's like, well, how long do you expand?
Where are the cutoffs?
Yeah, that it's tough. And look, you're right though that Shai has been better this season, but I don't know if in my head, even with Jokic the way he's looked coming back from injury, I don't know if in my head that's just because of the availability. Like, and I think other people getting caught up in it. Is it just the sample size, or is it, oh, he's just been way better? And then you also, the stuff that creeps in for me too is I would recognize, I think if I'm building a team,
I was just going to ask that.
I think it's easier to build around Shai than it would be Jokic. And like, how much does that matter to it? And now we've journeyed far afield from the MVP or who's the best player, but how much does that stuff matter in either of those discussions? And also, are we having the same discussion? Do you know, like, how do you detach MVP from like the best player in the world? Because we're saying, okay, look at a given season, and we're saying that is the MVP, but you're also kind of using that argument as this year Shai is better than Jokic and therefore he's the best player in the world. Are those actually two separate things? I don't know.
Well, the other thing that complicates it further is if you take the approach of, I'm starting a team, I think you might just pick Wemby over both of them. If you're assuming you get full career, or honestly, well, how about this as a thought experiment? The season starts today and you're trying to get through a season and win a championship. If you believe in the growth trajectory of Wemby, that like the state he's in now, in 8 or 10 months, he will be markedly better than he is now. There's a case that you pick him still. And if you're talking full career, the next 5-10 years, it's him easy. But if it's just a season starts today, I mean, Wembanyama is a consideration, I think, because against those two, I don't know. Like that's a separate discussion, I guess. But yeah,
I guess it's tough.
In 2 weeks, I might just say that was insane. Jokic is clearly the best player in the world. Right? Like I might just be right back there. You seem to have never left, which is admirable.
Well, I guess because I'm just asking is when you're talking about the NBA's best player, when you're talking about the best player in the world, is it just a single season? Like, what does it take to lose that throne? Because I think you could say this, we have not seen Apex Jokic this year, at least for as long as we would have liked to. That's just, that's a fact. are we saying that player is gone then? Because I assume that player is still like, first of all, Jokic has also been good enough that he's going to finish number 2 or 3. Well, if he plays in enough games,
two or nothing.
Yeah, he's going to finish second on the MVP ballot. And so that's also a factor for me too, to where it's all right. If he's let go of the rope right now, fine. He's still the second most valuable player in the league then.
Yeah. I honestly, I think you raised it. The building a team around thing is an increasingly salient factor for me, because I do think the defense has slipped, and I do think, as great as he is offensively, I've said this before, we might be now, what we thought 5 years ago about Jokic might actually be true now, after he disproved it by winning a title, which is that your defense just cannot be good enough with him in the middle of it. I think that's resonating much more to me now. Whereas Shai, partly because he plays a far less important defensive position, it just like, if he's the first player you put on your roster, it's not like you're thinking, shit, how do we compensate for this at the other 4 spots? With Shai, there's you could do whatever you want. With Jokic, you really do. You need your Aaron Gordons. You might need your KCPs. Like you might need those types of role guys to make it work. And if you don't have elite role guys that do all the specific things you need, maybe it can't, maybe that is a real limitation for him that we sort of haven't had to think about for a while.
The thing that I don't think, because what you're saying and what I've said in the past, that is a popular way to frame it. What I don't think receives enough credit is, if Jokic did all those important defensive things that are supposed to be done at his position, what would he look like? The guys who do those things don't look anything like he does on the offensive end.
Yeah. That's undeniable. It's like anyone that has that level, well, there just aren't other big guys that have that level of responsibility. So he's unique in that sense, because who's the second highest usage offensive center? I struggle to even come up with somebody that is in, like, you want to say like Bam, but Bam is such a different player, and he's defined by his defense first. So it's an apples to oranges thing. Yeah, it's unfair in a lot of senses to ask Jokic to anchor a great defense, given how much he has to do in every other aspect of the game. It's just it's what makes for great debate, because he and Shai play the same sport. Their objectives are the same, but the things they're asked to do and the things that they can do are so wildly different that we're just never going to have like a solidified answer, I don't think.
There does seem to be something, by the way, with Shai's crunch time aura. I know Nikola Jokic has hit a ton of big shots. He's been one of the most efficient clutch players since he's been in his heyday, basically. Shai is just, when you talk about mythologizing a player, or just anecdotally speaking, they're a killer. That's just that Nuggets, the most recent Nuggets Thunder game down. There's it was like, no, you just knew that he was going to hit those clutch shots and they were going to go in.
Right. And no, the idea of there just not being a solution for him, it applies more to Shai than Jokic, because Jokic can't, if you give Jokic the ball in an isolation above the arc, he might have something great happen, but it's not going to be like what Shai does, where it's just this demoralizing, there's nothing you can do to stop me scoring ability. Which,
I don't know, when Jokic puts his head down and like is using his shoulder, or even when he decides to get off an actual contested three where it's like the over the head shot because he's so big, but aesthetically speaking, like Shai fits what you're saying.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a lot of time on that, and we solved nothing. So, what do you got now?
Well, I'm gonna go fiction, and I love Shai. Probably not popular. You're gonna go fact though.
I'm gonna go fact with the caveat of, like, in 2 weeks I might have a different opinion. Sorry.
All right, let's go to Grant. Fact or fiction? Nerds ruin the NBA. They're part of the reason we couldn't celebrate Bam.
Yeah.
I'm tired of all this data floating around. Only people, they're looking at spreadsheets. They're not actually watching the games. This was, I think, the Bam discourse was what I added this to our list because of the straw man that people are, because I don't know, would it be the data people who are discrediting what Bam is doing, or would they be the one that were celebrating it? That'd be interesting. But there's been, it feels like the animosity, it happens 2 or 3 times a season where it comes back up, and it feels like animosity is once again bubbling to the surface. And I'll give an example, and I won't say the names because I respect the hell out of the 2 people that were involved in this exchange. But someone was upset about a lineup change that was made, and it was just not like went off and crashed out, but was talking about it, and then that person quote tweeted saying, "Oh, we're using an 11 possession sample size when it takes X amount of possessions to normalize or whatever," which is also factually correct. I think when people say this, the nerds ruin the NBA, there's a level of inauthenticity there, or people being disingenuous or unfair. But I do think, as someone who does incorporate data a lot and tries to approach as many things as I can with a both sidesism perspective
Mhm.
when it comes to the NBA, I don't like, and I will also note that there is such thing as toxic fandom, but it does, being irrational and reacting to the moment is the entire part of rooting for a name on a jersey. And
Yeah.
so if you're upset about, and no, you shouldn't be making threats or like anything along those lines, but if you want to react and be a prisoner of the moment to this lineup change, or this team is playing so poorly, they're going through this stretch, I'm out on them. I do think that's a part of fandom. I mean, even what we all do here is super unserious at the end of the day. We're covering a game where grown adults get paid millions of dollars, and I don't want to put a ball through a hoop. And I'm not trying to trivialize it to the point that it doesn't matter. People care about it. But when I say nerds ruin the NBA, I'm wondering if there's so much information out there, so many different people have a platform, which is fine. I'm not advocating that platform should be taken away, but that oversaturation of information and approaches is at war with itself, to where it doesn't feel like we can just accept, well, some people approach, root for, or cover the game in different ways. We're in a search for this, an absolutist way to look at the NBA and objectively evaluate everything that's happening. And I don't want that to ever exist.
Yeah. I think I don't think anybody comes to the NBA and ends up loving it because they were interested in like lineup data or estimated plus minus or synergy tracking stuff. I think people come to the NBA and sports in general because it's entertaining and it is a turn your brain off thing. And more than that, maybe I'm just telling on myself, but the narrative qualities that attach to it. Like if you came up in a formative stage watching Reggie Miller against the Knicks or Michael Jordan's Bulls on a Sunday morning NBC game, you thought superheroes were real, right? Because that's how those guys were painted, and the stories mattered. The Knicks hate Miller. Miller hates the Knicks. That Jordan is indomitable. He will always make the big shot. He is a larger than life. Like that kind of stuff is ultimately, I think, why sports are popular. It's like a good stand-in for war, because as we've become more civilized, like you have to force this competition that you can entertain yourself by watching. It's like an advanced form of, I don't know, like the gladiator games or whatever. So like we all need this. We need this to entertain us because we're monkeys that evolved and we have all these like primal things we're interested in. That said, if the narrative side and the less rational and the like just have fun side makes the game more enjoyable, I think all the numbers and the different like angles of analysis and the sort of I don't know, hacking of basketball makes it interesting in its own way. And also
For
like
sure.
it it's how you win. I think it's now a requirement. You must have the talent, you must have a good coach, but you also must have a plan that takes advantage of, marginal edges or market inefficiencies or whatever. Like you have to, whether, and that might mean your shot diet as a team, and that might mean the types of players you scout and draft, like the qualities you value, because you've analyzed all those down to the last detail. So like, have nerds ruined basketball? No, they've made it better in a lot of ways. They have made it like kind of more obnoxious. And I can throw myself into this because I just like, take for example, like there's a Kobe fan or whatever, maybe a more contemporary example. There's a Jokic fan in Denver that is just not having it when we're throwing out the catch-alls that say, actually, Shai's better. Like we're talking past each other because that fan doesn't care about those numbers. That fan cares that he's seen Jokic for years and means something special to him, and like will not
Yeah.
entertain the idea that anyone's better than this guy. And we're trying to be right. We're trying to say, well, I mean, quantifiably, there's a player that's better than him. And like, nobody's meeting in the middle anywhere. So it's like an inherent push and pull. It hasn't ruined it. It's
No,
changed. It's
it's
changed.
fiction, and I do think I still enjoy. And I was not watching the game. I was too young to watch like the game in the early '90s, and even just my recollections of the late '90s,
Mhm.
and like that era is very minimal. I love then when I first started watching the entire NBA and wasn't just a Knicks fan in like the early 2000s. I love what we're seeing more, and I
Mhm.
probably understand a lot of it less than I did then, but I
Mhm.
like watching it way more than I did then. And I think even when the clips go around, I'm sure you saw the most recent one. I want to say it was the finals between the Bulls and the Jazz? Was that 98? And it
Mhm.
was people were using it as an example, just like what happened to the game that we love. And I was like kind of watching it. I was just
Like,
like,
this sucks to
it
watch.
got it got
Yeah.
better. But that's
Yeah.
also that's my opinion. And the other thing I don't understand, there's one, this influx of information or like an exorbitant amount of information when this much money became on the line, when we're not just talking about what players are making, but what franchises are
Right.
worth,
Yeah.
this was the end result. And
Yeah.
you're in this hyper competitive space where every team, these 30 different teams are looking for an edge over the other. They're going to turn over every nook and cranny to try and
Mhm.
find that. And I also just wonder, I saw a lot of it. I can't remember the person who tweeted it. It was in the aftermath of the Bam game. I'm assuming they were responding to people complaining about the Bam game. But when they said nerds ruin the NBA, I do think a lot of it comes back to what is the trope right now? There's too many threes
Mhm.
being taken. And so do you think, like, do we honestly think that Steph Curry wouldn't be Steph Curry if it weren't for nerds? That he wouldn't have been able to figure out that what I do is
Mhm.
this huge market inefficiency over the rest of the NBA? I would reject that notion. And if it would have prevented Steph from being Steph, then that's kind of proof that nerds did not ruin the NBA or that this influx of information didn't ruin the NBA, because Steph is one of the most entertaining players, electrifying players in NBA history just to watch. On the ball, off the ball, whatever, I don't care. And so that was the other thing I kind of thought about, to where, right, even if you sort of feel this way and there are things that are get overthought, and there might be some people, the way they look at the game or cover the game, that's not your cup of tea, and that's ultimately fine. I just couldn't get to where, like, I didn't even see enough. And the reason I threw this on there is I didn't even see enough quote unquote nerds discrediting or not allowing people to enjoy what Bam did. Maybe I'm just not in the comment sections enough then, which honestly
No,
I would call that a good character trait of
I
mine.
think insofar as I think insofar as there was pushback on the BAM thing, it was coming from a very different side than the analytics side. It was coming from your old schoolers or your Kobe devotees, or like it was coming from an irrational place as opposed to an analytical place. I think that I don't think the nerds were mad about the BAM thing, or I would be surprised if they were. No, maybe the way you mentioned Steph, but like if so the way that Steph and the Warriors played under Mark Jackson, who was an old schooler, who was not a fan of what you'd call it analytics, you could very much imagine him being the one to say, jump shooting teams can't win a championship, even though he did say that the Steph and Clay were the best shooting backcourt ever. It took Steve Kerr and a new coaching staff that was more willing to look at, like, what happens if we let guys shoot a lot more threes? And there were some precursors like the Van Gundy Magic and all that stuff to make. So did the style the Warriors started playing under Kerr ruin the game, or did it make it better? I would argue pretty strongly it made it better. So it's
Mhm.
just, and that was very much fueled by talent, but also by just, we should play differently because the numbers say we should play differently. So that's a pretty clear example to me of, complain all you want about like the catch-all metrics and this and that, as opposed to just like watching your favorite player
I,
and enjoying it.
th-
But it's pretty
you
clear
know,
there's a lot of value add.
you mentioned the catch-all metrics. We've mentioned the threes. I would just be curious what the actual biggest gripe or the belief in data ruined this aspect of the NBA. What is the most prevalent focus on that? Is it the 3-point volume? Is it I feels like players, I'm just going to use a Cam Thomas as an example. It's like they're relatively average or below average efficiency volume scores that don't do a ton else. And I don't want to say it's weeded them out of the game, but there's definitely not as big of an appreciation for them as there might have been a couple decades ago. What is it? I'm just curious as to what my guess would be the 3-point volume stuff, but that's not, I don't consider like 3 being more than 2 analytics type.
No,
Like
I also don't think it's anything that specific. I think more broadly, there's a sense that you're making this less fun. I just like take Kevin Durant, for example, not to hold him up as some denier of analytics, but he always just likes to talk about like, I just go out and hoop and I like hoopers. And it's like, it's a kind of, you know it when you see it. I've formed this opinion over my life kind of stance on what basketball is supposed to look like. And for people that think that way, being confronted with all these metrics that say, actually, Cam Thomas is not a bucket or whatever. Like, yes, I hear you saying he's a bucket. Problem is he's not a helpful offensive player. And it's just like, don't make me question my beliefs and don't make me think harder about what's actually good and why, right? It's just like, there's a resistance to that. I feel like in a broader sense, which I get, like if you want to enjoy basketball a certain way, it's an entertainment product. Like, great, do it, have at it. But I understand why people bristle at just the nerddom of it all, because it's inherently less fun in that particular way.
There could be a level of it still that's intimidating when you're looking at some of the like lottery proposals I had to read through. I hate having to read through things. Like, it makes you feel stupid, and then you become that's speaking for me personally. And the other thing too that I think is unfair is that we're on one level to where there are people that probably don't have access to all the information that we do, and there are people that are just dimensions above us. We don't have, like, I don't have a Second Spectrum subscription, so it's unfair, I think, for fans of all people who are maybe only following one team or just selecting their favorite games and watching it, to just have, like, to understand this. They don't have the data of, well, how is Anthony Edwards passing out of traps from the left side of the floor? Like, first of all, not everyone's watching the game, even if you remove analytics from the equation through that prism, but there's an informational barrier at like separate levels. There's just, depending on where you are, what you're willing to pay for, or who you work for, like, you're just going to have access to different levels of information and nuance.
Yeah. No, I think it's a complicated issue for sure. Let's move on to a simpler one. This is more of an either or thing in the spirit of Fact or Fiction. Dan, Paolo Banchero, friend of the pod, because we talk about him all the time, is underrated. Fact or Fiction?
I need to go find that from the Rookie of the Year thing that you had between him and Jalen Williams that went viral and people hated us for. I'd like to bring that up because that Grant Hughes did not think Paolo Banchero was underrated.
Is he though? Because so the case is,
yes.
This is okay. Hold on. I want to say, because I was thinking you might go this direction. The basis of saying he's underrated is really just one of those that we talk about sometimes. The pendulum swung too far. Is that the case that you're prepared to make, that he is in fact underrated?
No. Well, I mean, it's part of the case, but he has actual flaws. But what if I harped on every single time we have a Paolo Banchero talk, to the point where our subscribers have to be just annoyed that I keep saying it? The context of the Orlando Magic around him has never made sense.
Yeah.
Right. And there are things about his game that could be frustrating, but we talked about Paolo Banchero before he goes on this, post All-Star tear where he's been more efficient. And like, one of the bigger deals is his percentage inside 5 feet is increased by 15 percentage points during, like, it's cool. Yeah. If he shoots 75% inside 5 feet for the rest of his career, he'll be pretty good. But some of the things that he was doing, even before his efficiency was ticking up, was getting off the ball quicker, not being I always think the ball you talk about the pendulum swinging in the wrong direction. It felt like that was one of the examples. Just has felt like he's made a concerted effort while the Magic have been banged up, still trying to establish themselves. Like, they haven't had the team they thought they were going to have this year. Just, you could single out a bunch of different reasons, but it's Franz Wagner has just been injured. Paolo Banchero was injured at one point. They haven't had that. Their core lineup has not been available. But the effort that he has done, I think, to fit in to their larger ecosystem was admirable before this turn started happening. And I would also argue is admirable in the sense that I still didn't understand Orlando's offensive ecosystem for much of this year. And so when he's going to play like this, as someone who can still hit tough shots, yes, you could quibble about, okay, if the threes are going to fall at a higher clip, that's a big one. And the other thing I would just point to, no, these were not the most efficient performances. No, he does not have the longest postseason sample. He's kind of proven that he can be a killer on the league's biggest stage. And that, to me, when you were in he hasn't even finished year 4, and injuries happen to every team. And so, yes, he's going to be under a larger microscope. We named him as a player that has a ton of pressure on him and a bunch to prove. I would agree with that. You got a max contract, the bar officially, you're exiting he could be anything territory. Let's wait for it. I recognize that urgency. I just feel like there are at least enough pockets, longer extended pockets or important pockets of time where the player that we've seen is not the one that is portrayed by whether it's fans, talking heads, podcasters, writers, whatever, a lot of the time.
So the underrated, overrated thing is sort of an impossible premise because it's who is establishing the official opinion on how good Paolo Banchero is.
It's not provably false.
No,
what did the Clippers say? It's provably.
I'm just asking you some questions. Do you think that he is ever going to be a 3-point shooter that defenses are scared of or have to guard truly honestly?
Could you give me an example of someone that fits the median of that?
Well, how about this? Will he be a 3-point shooter that is treated like Carmelo Anthony was?
Yes.
You think? Okay. Which is like towards the end, like fairly high bar. Melo was almost like a specialist towards the end there. So, but like prime Melo was guarded very honestly beyond the arc. I think fair, right? Like that's even though his chief skill was kind of the stuff Paolo, mid-range ISO attack type of stuff.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. If that's one where I can't quite get there,
okay.
But what I struggle with him is this is his 4th year, as you said. The context has never been ideal. This is age 23 season. At what point do you give up on a skill development? He's like right on the borderline for me with respect to the 3-point shooting specifically. I think there's so much else to recommend him. Where I guess I would have to say that this is. It is fiction. He is not underrated. I think he's still closer to overrated for a couple key reasons. One, I do think, take the name out of it, this player type is overrated to me in general. And I think what I mean by that is primarily a scorer whose offensive value diminishes a lot if he doesn't have the ball. So that just means that you have to be so good as a first option at this thing that it's not a niche thing, but this role is what it is. You have to be so good at this. And there's a half dozen guys in the league maybe that are good enough at it to justify to offset the lack of offensive value away from the ball, the like scalability stuff. Like I wouldn't say he's a scalable player or hasn't looked like one so far. And then defensively, he's not someone that's going to be defined by his play on that end ever. So to immediately max this guy and treat him as if he is capable of being the best player on a good team, like really good team, feels like too much to me still. I haven't seen enough to justify sort of that status. And the contract's doing a lot of work.
Yeah, for sure.
But that all rolls into the overrated, underrated, properly rated calculus for me. So I get what you're saying. And I think maybe if I'm wrong, it's because I'm just too quick to dismiss the possibility that the context matters as much as it might, and to dismiss the potential for him to get better, because like those are difficult to, one's totally unknowable. The other one is really hard to quantify.
I think the most persuasive part of that argument is kind of the same thing. When you look at the 3-point percentage or the value off the ball, when you mentioned Carmelo Anthony, would he be respected on the same level? Carmelo Anthony was taking a bunch of these off the dribble threes that Paolo's not going to take. And so when you look at, I think 80% of his career, like 3-pointers have come off assists, and the fact that he's not a more efficient 3-point shooter. But you can also point to this year when he is shooting under 31% for the year or whatever, wherever he's at, 41+% on catch and shoot threes. And so what I struggle with him, I could reckon, like, maybe I'm going to be wrong. Like, maybe I'm just too high on Paolo, or maybe it's just that I think you mentioned at the top, I'm overcompensating because I think the pendulum has swung too far in one direction. The push and pull for me is, like, does he need to be in a different ecosystem? And you could argue that a great player would figure it out regardless, but the magic between their injuries and just like the limitations they've always had on the offensive end. And what I also don't think he's ever received enough credit for is the ability to draw fouls, his defense in general, being a part of a couple of elite defenses. And there's, of course, the rebounding there. And so I really wanted this team to go to the playoffs this year because I think that would be the, okay, let's... Yeah. But even if they make it to the playoffs, are they going to have a fully available? There'll always be excuses there. So it'll be weird. It is objectively weird that we might still be having this discussion for a 5th year running when he enters next season.
Yeah. I mean, to draw it all the way back to the Jalen Williams comparison, it's like, I think so much of that is still true, which is to say that Banchero's skills force him into this box where success is just harder because he's got to be the number one option. I think that's the player type he is, where Williams, if there's a knock on him, it's that he can't be that, but he does everything else so well that his value is actually higher. So like Paolo is either super duper star or not that useful. Whereas Williams is going to be highly useful for a very long time because his game is very different. And it's just, I don't know. It's like players don't decide I want to be in this box or that one, but they're just in very different boxes. And I don't know if you want to say it's like a degree of difficulty or like the expectations, they're just different for Banchero because he doesn't do all the other stuff, just to use him as an example that Jalen Williams can do. So, or has done when he's healthy. It's been a shit year for him this year. It's just a different thing. It's a hard standard to hit if you're the type of player that Paolo, number one overall pick, first option offensive guy like that, that's just a harder thing to be.
That's the other thing he's up against, is because when I did a bonus when we posted our truth serum takes, my bonus bold prediction was, because as of right now, I think people would say Jalen Johnson's going to make more all NBA teams than Paolo Banchero over the course of their career. And I said the opposite. And maybe he's the number one pick. That's not spicy at all. And you kind of have to, knowing what we've seen from Paolo Banchero with the perception of him right now, you need to divorce that. You could hold him to that bar, but that doesn't make, you know what I mean? Like he's never going to escape. I was the number one pick, so the bar's always going to be higher, but he could if he turned into a Jalen Johnson level player, some people might think that's a failure because Jalen Johnson is what? The 30th best player in the league?
Right.
Or whatever.
Right. Well, no, but by that logic, he does become better because Jalen Johnson is a lot closer to Jalen Williams to me than he is to Paolo Banchero, where it's like you're getting contributions in all these different areas, and it's pretty easy to build. It's just like the Jokic thing. It's like pretty easy to build a team around this guy because Jalen Johnson could be your first option on an okay team, so can Paolo, but he can give you this other stuff that Paolo hasn't to the same degree. It's the role it's tough. It's almost like a feast or famine kind of thing. Like he's either a huge disappointment or he becomes an MVP candidate. There's kind of no in between for him.
It's my pick, right?
Sure.
Let's go to. I don't want to do this. I feel like I've done a lot of the anecdotal ones so far. So let's do this. Grant, the Los Angeles Lakers are a real threat, or more of a threat in the Western Conference than they're being credited for. They do. Before throwing it to you, as a team that's top 4 in the conference, I'm trying to think of who was the last team that was top 4 in the West that we just kind of dismissed. Just like, they're not it.
Yeah.
It was probably a Grizzlies team, right? It was an iteration of the Grizzlies.
It could have been a Grizzlies. It could have been like even last year's Rockets, I think, where everybody was like, this is the number 2 seed, but what are we talking about here?
But people were talking about, well, maybe I'm not, but I just don't know. Like, I feel like the Lakers haven't gotten the attention of a team that has Luka, sometimes has LeBron, has Austin Reeves headed towards free agency. They're top 4 in the West. And I don't know. It just, that team having who it does and being where it is, I thought would be under more of a spotlight than they have been.
You've often lamented the lack of coverage the Lakers get, and you've been really consistent on that. That's
maybe
one of
I'm speaking just through this podcast. Like they're not a team. Like what's the team we've talked about the most this year? It's not the Lakers.
It's not. So I keep track of every game I watch with little tick marks, and the Lakers have a shockingly few number of tick marks relative to some other teams. I just haven't been interested. And so I think that's just proving your point. Are they a real threat to win the West? That to me is fiction. I just think the defense has been better. This seems to happen. Well, I say every year under Redick because he hasn't been there for that long. But there's all historically in the Redick era, there have been stretches where like the narrative is the defense looks way better than it has a right to. And well, I mean, now what? Now what are we going to knock them for? And then it doesn't stick. I'm hanging on to the priors of you can't be a serious threat to win a conference if your three best players are defensive minuses. I don't see it. And when there's not another lights out defender on the roster to offset that you can play without giving up a bunch of stuff on offense. I mean, maybe I said too much. I just don't think that Jared Vanderbilt, Marcus Smart, is that that's where we're turning to?
It's the defensive stuff. And you could point to, I think they are 10th since the All-Star break. And my favorite stats are like, well, they're third over their last 3 games. It's like, oh, wow, that's incredible.
Right.
They've gotten lucky on opponent 3-point shooting. They're sub 32% since the All-Star break. But I will say when you watch them in some of these games, and particularly that game against the Timberwolves, there's more of just like a defensive connectivity there to where like they're doing a better job containing the ball, which makes things easier on the guys who are going to be around the basket, whether it's a DeAndre Ayton or a Jackson Hayes. Their rotations, like they've just been faster to rotate, it looks like. Marcus Smart has been better defensively, I think, during this stretch than I've seen across like the entire season. Also, just kind of Luke Kennard seems to have usurped Jake LaRavia on the rotation, and like they're leaning into just more space on offense, maybe like more dynamism on the offensive end. Perhaps that's the way to go. What I keep coming back to, though, is going to be the defense, because can they maintain this level of defense across an entire series? Again, let's say they're facing the Timberwolves. Like, okay, sure, maybe they could against the Timberwolves. They're not doing it 3 times. It's just not going to, like, they don't have the defensive personnel to do it. They don't. And there's also just, it's really cool that Luka and Reeves have dominated the time they've spent without LeBron James. LeBron James, like, is back. He played against the Bulls. I did not watch that game, so I'm just assuming he played against the Bulls. I saw he was available. Like, he's a pretty integral part of your team because he's LeBron James. And so you said it. If you're going to have all 3 of them on the court at once, I don't know how you build a defense that can be, even if you're able to, like, keep teams away from the basket more often and not allow them to shoot 70+% at the rim. Okay, great. Can you reach a level high enough with those 3 on the court for how many minutes? They're all going to play 30+. Can you reach a high enough level defensively over a 48-minute game when you're going to have 2 of those guys on the floor at all times to beat not just the Timberwolves or the Rockets, but it's the Timberwolves and the Rockets and the Nuggets, or you know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to, the West is just, it's still brutal at the top in that way.
That's the thing. It's, you could convince me that they might play a game or 2 or even an entire series at the level defensively that they would need to win it. Are you beating the Thunder and or the Spurs? And, you know, like, just to say nothing of, like, LeBron and Luka don't have the greatest recent track record of holding up over a full postseason either. So there's that. Like, even if maybe you could say the best version of the Lakers is a team that for a short period can really play with and maybe beat anybody. But the length of time that the Lakers would need to sustain that level is just, it's not realistic. I don't think whether that's health, whether that's defense, whatever it is, it's compared to the teams they'll have to play, there's no way they hold that level for as long as it would take to be a real threat.
2 things. I think if you polled any of the play-in teams in the Western Conference, they would all say they want to face the Lakers in the first round versus anybody. Like, maybe the Rockets creep into that. The other thing is, my real my NBA era has begun was basically when LeBron entered the NBA. The fact that he has now dealt with arthritis and sciatica in the same season is proof once and for all, even though it was already dead, that my youth is deceased. And this has been tough. It's tough for me to come to grips with. I'm not, when I saw he was missing time with arthritis, the sciatica got me at the beginning of the year, but I was like, he'll come back. Like, no, like, this is just, I'm not okay with it, Grant. So
thoughts and prayers. Sorry to hear it.
And as my wrist is injured too, like, it's all unraveling. It's your pick now, though.
Ooh, this one jumped out at me because we haven't really talked about them since he came back. Fact or fiction, the Celtics should be considered the real favorites to come out of the East. Jason Tatum is back. He's playing basketball. He's had some very encouraging moments after a couple rough ones in his debut. It was really like a tale of two halves. Even in that one, he's had a bad half, I would say, or like a rusty half. Otherwise, most of the signs have been highly encouraging. This fact or fiction, as phrased, means that it's not the Cavs or the Pistons or your New York Knicks that should be the favorites. What do we think about this? Because we talked last time. We did talk a little bit about the Celtics to the extent of how did we get here? If you told me we would be here 6 months ago, I would have just wondered what crazy set of circumstances led to it. But it doesn't feel that weird. It doesn't. The more I think about it, the more I could get on board with this. Are you starting to have kind of those same like little, I don't know, like there's this little tug that's just don't overthink it. Like Boston might just be it.
And the tug is stronger because of how Detroit has struggled since coming out of the All-Star break overall.
And because of what we've said about the Pistons all year. Like the flaw is just, we just know it. We just know what it is. Boston, maybe, do you think because now the Celtics aren't new in a real sense, but we've seen so little of them at full strength that we maybe don't yet know what the Pistons level flaw is that we could isolate and say, well, this is why. If they lose, this will be why. Because we can do that for the Pistons. We could do that for the Knicks. We could do that for the Cavs and go down the list. Is that part of it? Or are the Celtics such a known commodity that like there isn't one of those?
You're right. I don't know that I've given thought to their fatal flaw. What did we call their fatal flaw when we were going through the...
I just said they don't get to the rim enough and they don't shoot enough free throws. And even then, pre-Tatum, I was reaching.
Yeah, that was pre-Tatum, yeah. I'm going to say fiction just because I probably they were my preseason picks, so this is me sticking to my priors, but at the same time, I do believe it. I think the Cavs should probably be considered favorites to come out of the East, and I have two main reasons why. Focusing on the Pistons, I really do believe that their crowning flaw is going to come back to absolutely nail them in the playoffs. Maybe I'm wrong. With Boston specifically, it's really cool what they're doing, but like we're just, Baylor Shireman, Hugo Gonzalez, like the level of dependence on those types of players, or whether it's let's assume Cato looks fine in the playoffs. How are you feeling about that backup 5 spot after that? Is it like, who are you trusting the most there? Is it Luka Garza? Is it Vooch? You're getting super small. How many minutes is Jordan Walsh playing here? And so there's a level of dependence either on one, imperfect players, and I'm just saying Vooch is really there, or these unknown commodities up and down the roster, which I think is part of what makes them so intriguing, is that Baylor Shireman, like he's contributing to this team now. Hugo Gonzalez as a rookie is doing the same. So there's the stuff that they're able to do defensively and the cool things that they've integrated into their offense. And now you just have Tatum back. I think you could say, looking at the rest of the East, seeing what the Knicks have kind of done, and then everything else just below those four teams is right. Okay. I don't really need to talk myself in anything there. I think it needs to be the Cavs still. And I'm saying that as someone who would not have traded for James Harden if I were them.
Right. So I'm going to go, maybe it's the novelty of it. Although again, is it novel? It's the Celtics. They have a title, the core is different, but the core is still there. I don't trust the Cavs. It's just start and stop at James Harden, I guess. If you're trying to come out of the East, that's a pretty big hurdle for me. Sorry, What's
the bigger concern for you? James Harden or the wing defense?
I guess it probably has to be the wing defense.
I was just curious.
Harden's a part of that, though, so for what it's worth. The Pistons, we know we know what the flaw is going to be. The Knicks, I mean, we should have done are the Knicks underrated? Because some of these numbers, I know it's just nobody's on board with the Knicks. I'm gonna say I'm gonna go fact. There's something about the Celtics. There's something about just what we know and the unknown combined in a very exciting way.
It's also very impressive that they're here despite being so unfairly officiated the entire season, as Jaylen Brown would say.
I thought you were gonna be serious for a second. I was like, yeah. What if the
You
Celtics
agreed before I said it. I
what
finished. I thought that was great.
I was already thinking of my next thing, which is now seems less profound as I've had 20 seconds to stew on it. But what if the Celtics are like, they everything we say about the Heat, or really said like 3, 4, 5 years ago, where you just don't want to see them because there's something there, and don't worry about the regular season. If you get them in a series, they're going to be well coached and they're going to play hard and they're going to da da da. Like, what if that applies to the Celtics, except the Celtics could win 58 games also? Like, what if it's all the Heat culture stuff applies to the Celtics now, but the Celtics actually just have more talent to start with?
I'm standing by my fiction, which is, I think, rooted a lot in maybe things that haven't come back to bite them yet. Where it's, if we're going to talk about, okay, do the Pistons need more playoff scars? Do the Spurs as a team need more playoff scars? Like, like Baylor Shireman and Jordan Walsh and Hugo Gonzalez, they need their playoff scars too.
Right.
But to your point, when you start going into individual matchups between everyone in the East specifically, it does feel like Boston is more of a potential foil for anyone than any other team in the East. And if you go through and said, who's the toughest matchup for the Pistons? It might be Boston. I think
might be
Cleveland's
Boston
in there for sure.
Because you can throw 4 different guys at Cade.
Who's the toughest matchup for Cleveland? Is it Detroit or is it Boston? Is it New York? It might be Boston.
It might be Boston. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
and
that's
flip it though and say, like, who do the Celtics really not want to see? And it gets a lot harder.
The Hornets.
Nobody wants to see the Hornets. Yeah. All right, your turn.
All right, I'm going to go here because I want you to talk about it. The Warriors should tank the play-in. Fact or fiction? Now, just as a background here, I don't think their lottery odds are going to get any better than they are right now. They're too far in front of the Blazers for me. I mean, maybe they could if they really wanted to pull shenanigans. But what I'm basically saying is they should guarantee themselves a 7.2% chance at a top 4 pick rather than getting into the first round of the playoffs and getting trucked by most likely the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah. Okay. So I was going to ask you because I didn't have the math. So if you lose in the
nerds are ruining the NBA. I apologize.
If you lose the 9-10 game, that you're done, and that's where you get your 7% chance at the number 1 pick, right?
Because I think it still goes by record after that. So even if they lost to the Blazers could still technically end up in front of them in the lottery if they don't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying maybe it's a little bit more than 7.2%, but let's use 7.2% as the baseline of getting a top 4 pick in the lottery.
Top 4. I said like number 1. I still am in old lottery math. So I'm open to it because this season, nothing's happening this season. Steph at the latest report is going to miss at least another handful of games. It's getting up towards 2 months that he will have missed by the time he comes back from this runner's knee. And I mean, maybe another factor fiction should be Steph should not play another game this year. Just because what are you doing? I'm going to just say fiction. I'm open to being sold on if you're willing to say fact. I'm open to the argument there. I just say fiction because it's not enough of the math says you should, but it's not. It just sort of like considering it from the perspective of the team's goals and what they've sort of broadcast their aims are. It doesn't make sense that the payoff isn't great enough to justify packing it in what might be Steve Kerr's last year. Like, I've actually been thinking a lot more about that lately. He's got no contract for next year. I mean, he might look at what's happened this season and what the prospects are and say, I'm good. Also retire somewhere.
It doesn't seem as if negotiating with Joe Lacob is a good time based off how Bob Myers left. Or do you remember the anecdote where he kind of questions whether they should have given Steph max money? Like a contract to go or whatever it was. Yeah.
So there's that. I just think more broadly, if there's a sliver of a chance you can get Steph in a meaningful game, they're gonna go with it. So I'm gonna say fiction. I think they should just see what happens in the play-in and not pack it in. But I mean, they might not have to pack it in to lose that 9-10 game. That's really the thing. Like, you might get what you want without, just calling it quits.
I want to say fact, but it's probably a fiction. And I think part of me says that knowing there's a chance they don't need to pack it in to end up there anyway. Just because beyond Steph, it's like, well, what is going to be going on with Kristaps at that point? But I'm also just, I don't know. They have, unless they're planning on making this big trade, they're not going to have Jimmy Butler back until 2027. I'm going to say fact. It's honestly, because, and look at what's happened with the way that the jumps in the lottery. Like if they ended up jumping into the top 4, I'm not, tanking is a problem. It needs to be addressed, but it's going to be addressed after the season for next year anyway. I don't know, man. That comes back to should Steph play again this season? And my answer just might be, I'm good. I know that runs counter to you should be going as hard as you can in every Steph being Steph type of year. Okay, sure. But this isn't going to be that year. If Steph is Steph, you're not beating the Thunder, what would it take for Golden State to upset Oklahoma City?
I mean, Steph would have to average 40, I think. And that's your starting point.
Yep,
that might,
tank it. That's I'm calling fact.
Okay. That's fair. I get it. Again, for the millionth time, I'm not rational about the Warriors. All right. We haven't done this yet. This might be an easy one. Fact or fiction, the Hornets of Charlotte are the 5th best team in the Eastern Conference. Why make the case that this isn't fact?
It's a fact.
It's a fact.
People, I've seen a different time span cited, and that always gets its cherry picking. Since Thanksgiving, this is the one that I've always harped on. They are 2nd in offense and they are 6th in defense. Grant, that is 49 games. That's we can't just look at a 50-game sample size and say, I don't know. A lot of luck there. Opponents aren't hitting their threes, which is part of it. But the defense is better. Do you know what changed for this team? LaMelo, Brandon Miller, and Con Knipple are playing at the same fucking time. That is what we were waiting on. Knipple just came into the league. So we've been waiting on LaMelo and Miller to have more of a sample size together, or for either one of them to just gain traction and play in a bunch of games writ large. It's happening, and this is the end result. Now, do I think that they're going to win a playoff series if they come out of the play-in or make it to the playoffs? I mean, tell me who they're facing. I'll get back to you. How is this? What if it's not them? Who is it? That's my other question.
Right. So the logical candidates would be Orlando, Miami. I think you rule the Sixers out of that conversation at the moment just because of Maxi's injury and Embiid and all that stuff. Atlanta, Toronto. Did I say Toronto?
No.
I mean, let's say of Orlando, Atlanta, Toronto, and Miami. Miami jumps out at me, and maybe that's just because we were talking about Bam and Heat culture and all that stuff. But I mean,
Pele Larson. I think that's the main reason for me.
I mean, it's not Atlanta. I just don't trust Orlando. So is it Toronto? Is Toronto's defense
not the way they're playing right now?
Yes. So I think there's no doubt that the Hornets offense is elite and real. Defense, it's the 3-point shooting is we killed the Pelicans a couple years ago because they were this inexplicably good defense because of 3-point luck, and maybe some of that applies. But that version of the Pelicans, just to use them as a comparison, did not have Charlotte's offense. And I have no questions about Charlotte's offense. I don't think there's a great solution for it that anyone can really put out. The Thunder, you're not going to have to see them until you make the finals.
Oh my God, could you imagine?
Same thing with Wemby. You're not going to have to run into him and solve him until the finals in 2027 at the latest. So yeah, it's a pretty easy fact. Maybe we're bandwagony, maybe we're just enjoying how fun this all is, but I think there's a real case. You said it, 50 games where you're you have the profile of a title contender, 2nd and 6th. What are we talking about?
You're the Pistons. Who are you more afraid of facing in a play? It doesn't matter when in a playoff series, the Knicks or the Hornets.
Well, you still have to say the Knicks because the Hornets run up against the we're new here. Hi, new here, fellas. That part of it, which we apply to the Spurs, or at least I do. So I say Knicks. That said, Charlotte could beat Detroit in a series. It's possible. I don't know. It's fun. What fun times. I like that we're here.
So that we agreed on that. That was the first one we agreed on in a few. My turn. Let's stick with play-in territory-ish teams. Grant, the Suns are the most dangerous non-contender in the NBA. And so I'm going to frame this as who doesn't rank in the top 10 of championship odds. They're like 18th or whatever it is. And you can look at it and say, are they the like non-contender most likely to win a playoff series? I think it would be easy to say, well, wouldn't that be the Hornets? But like, if the Hornets are going to run into, I guess the Suns are going to run into the Thunder or number 2, and you want to just face number 2. So we're just open-ended. The Suns are the most dangerous non-contender in the NBA. Just the way that they've played under Jordan Ott, in spite of certain injuries. They're getting development from Bashir Fleming, Kaman Malawach right now. Devin Booker, just as a passer this year, even defensively for him. Fact or fiction?
I think it's fiction, while acknowledging just, Jordan Ott should be on everybody's short list for Coach of the Year, and just how refreshing it's been that the Suns are just winning because they play hard and do all the right things after all the BS with the Bradley Beal KD era. It's just looking at a list of possible alternatives. Again, Miami jumps out. Again, Charlotte. Maybe even if we throw Charlotte out.
Isn't Charlotte a contender though?
Right. That's why they don't belong in this conversation. They're a tier above it. Honestly, the Clippers, if Kawhi is going to be this Kawhi, all the same shit we've always said about you don't want to see if you go against the Clippers, there's a great chance no matter who you are, you don't have the best player on the floor, which is immediately that's a red alert for a playoff series. A lot of times the best player on the floor's team is going to win. If Kawhi, and then again, how many times have we said if Kawhi ... who knows? Some part of me is still skeptical of the Suns for a couple reasons. One, I just like Devin Booker has not done it for me this year. I think Dylan Brooks is way too important, and he's going to be coming off that hand. And maybe the hand will be totally fine, but I've expected his offense to be in a massive regression all season, and I will never stop. You got to, and then here's the other thing that I just thought of. Like, the Suns do feel like one of those teams who play at an intensity level of 10 in January, and not everybody else does that. So I'm going to throw that cliche out there where when everybody's at a 10 in the playoffs, your 10 doesn't count for as much. Like, they don't have a 12 to get to. So maybe that gives me some pause as well. So I'll say fiction, but it's not an easy call. There's no like obvious better choice, I don't think, since Charlotte is in fact a contender.
I'll say fiction because I do think it's the Hornets, but I think the answer might actually just be the Clippers, because you mentioned the Kawhi stuff, but Darius Garland, like, do you just now all of a sudden integrating this player who was could have been all NBA? Like, you could say the same thing about Harden, but he's younger and there's like a different type of shake to him on the ball, and you can use him off the ball more in different spots. I think he also veers into the Kawhi territory of, well, if he's healthy. Right. And so that's why the Charlotte's who feels more bankable from a durability perspective between of the teams that we're considering. Charlotte, LAC. I mean, you could even say, the Suns have had a Jalen Green injury, now the Dillon Brooks stuff, so they've been banged up too.
It can't be the Clippers, because that's like their defining characteristics.
I think it's the Hornets.
It might be. And with hey, look how far we've come, LaMelo. Nobody's worried about the injury with you. Knock on everything. All right, my turn. Let's see. Is there any obvious one we've skipped over? Okay, let's do this. The fact or fiction, the Spurs are actually the West's second best team.
I mean, the standings say fact.
Standings would suggest that as a fact. The more fun, I think, I don't think there's any chance you would put another team above them. We slobbered all over Minnesota last time we recorded, and they've just shit the bed like 3 times since then.
Classic Minnesota too.
Classic. Right. So now no belief whatsoever in the Wolves. We absolutely would have mentioned them as the like alternative here a week ago. Maybe that's what we should still do. I think the Spurs are closer to the Thunder than they are to anybody below them. Maybe that's the way I'd frame it. I don't think anybody else is going to get into that number 2 spot, and I think there's a more compelling argument about the Spurs actually being very close to the Thunder's level.
I'm going to say fiction. I still think it's the Nuggets, and maybe I need to wait. I'm overweighting, though. We had this conversation, I think, a couple weeks ago about, you mentioned the stat about of the past 15 NBA champions, basically all of them, with the exception of the LeBron Lakers, have had a playoff series victory under their belt as a core. There's that element of it for me, but also I respect the hell out of the full strength Denver Nuggets. But if it comes down to a belief in which team is going to be more available at that point. Just with some of the injuries that the Nuggets have needed to deal with and are still dealing with.
Yeah.
That's a big one. I would just like to point out, like, it's very cool that Stephon Castle is shooting over 40% from three since the All-Star break. That doesn't just mean it's a new normal. And like,
Right.
should we just assume that De'Aaron Fox is a 29% three-point shooter then? Because that's what's going to happen, since I think he's at 31%, whatever it is. But that's like, offensively, I still have concerns about the Spurs. And the other thing too is, I don't think defenses should do this where Boston did it in their one game against San Antonio, where they left Victor Wembanyama so wide open. They decided we don't want him in the paint. But Victor Wembanyama is shooting under 33% on wide open threes this year. Just like a weird oddity. And so does that creep into it at all? But I'm more so worried about, well, how do the Spurs respond when defenses are guarding their youngsters? But not just Castle, but even a Dylan Harper. And like Wemby, he's just played in big games before, so I'm inclined to dismiss it. But like, what does he look like in the playoffs? So I'm gonna favor the experience element there. But what I would ask you, is there even another team other than Denver that you would mention next to San Antonio in this discussion?
Well, so I'm looking at it. I'm not looking at it as the second best. The team, if OKC is most likely to come out of the West in the playoffs, I'm not sure I would say the Spurs are second most likely. I'm talking about, like, if there's a game tomorrow, I think the only team I feel comfortable saying is better than San Antonio is the Thunder.
Okay.
If you're talking about, because I do think that there's stuff the Spurs have not had to solve yet that they're only going to learn how to solve by losing in a playoff series. I really do think that is what's likely to happen. And then they will solve it. And then this time next year, we're going to be talking about them. Who knows, in what kind of terms. I think you have to throw Denver in there if you're talking about who could come out of the West. I think you have to throw the Wolves in there, even though we jinxed them really badly. And I think that's probably where it stops. Because even with the uncertainty of, like, Houston, no. Even with the uncertainty of the Spurs.
Who's more likely to win a playoff series this year, the Rockets or the Lakers? That would have been a good question.
That might be a matchup dependent one. That's close, but I would just say that I do believe the Spurs are not fully cooked yet, and they still, to me, are like no worse than the third or fourth most likely team to come out of the West. Which I don't know how that squares. That's just how I feel.
There more picked them to win the title the other day. He went out, which is just, it's I trashed him for saying the Spurs are going to win 50 plus games this year. I don't know if I don't remember what their over under was at. We have to go through that. The fact that we're in March and he could say something like that, and it's bold for sure, but it's like, hey.
No, I get it. I've been thinking lately about how some of my preseason predictions about Wemby were very common, by the way, not just me. He's going to be a top 5 MVP candidate. He's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. He's going to do all this. And then I picked him for some ridiculously low win total. And friend of the pod, Bill, just asked me, like, how can both of these things happen? Like, it's, because if Wemby is this, right, then they're going to win 50 whatever games. And they're going to, like, and in hindsight, like, yeah, that's right. I should have just, the logical extension of Wemby being as great as I and everybody else thought he would be is that the Spurs would be this. And here we are. We overthought it a little bit. I think there was no scenario where Wemby would be this great and the Spurs would be a 37 win team. That just isn't how it could work.
We've reached the point of Wemby, by the way, where there are corners of the internet that are wondering if he can win Defensive Player of the Year because the way he defends isn't ethical enough, just because his physical tools are so anomalous. Yes.
Come on. So are like, does Tyrese Maxey have to slow down because it's not fair that he's so fast?
Yeah, why do you think he's missing time?
He's too fast. Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's a terrible take.
Let's do one more to see if we could squeeze in a mini stat padding afterwards. Which one are we on? Okay, here's this one. So Zach Lowe mentioned on his pod that there's some traction gaining towards lottery reform that includes incentivizing winning, not by disincentivizing losing necessarily, making the penalties harsher, but making wins contribute to lottery odds at a certain point in the season next year. So fact or fiction, NBA lottery reform will have wins count toward draft lotto odds in some form next season?
I think it's fact. We've gone over the potential solutions. The sticking points are like, what is the cutoff date? How exactly how much does each win help you? What kind of unintended consequences are going to be? It does just feel like this is the way that things are trending. So I think it'll happen. What I'm going to say though is that it's a half measure. I just, as long as there's going to be an incentive to lose at any point in the season, teams are going to follow where the incentives lead. This might help though. This is maybe a step towards I don't know, a slightly better result.
Would you have a date that you would prefer to see where if they are gonna, I don't want to say arbitrarily split it, but separate
October
it.
30th.
Do you think the unintended consequence of that would be we see some really egregious early season tanking? I'm curious which team would be most likely, when you look at their current roster landscape, that they're just gonna come out and look so bad. It's like, is it the Kings resting Domas Sabonis? I don't load managing him on opening night.
I mean, it's got to be a team that has. Well, it'd probably be the same teams, don't you think? Because you're not doing it if. I was just thinking, say LeBron is back with the Lakers and they do. You know what? Why don't you take the first 15 games off? Just extend the offseason, get healthy, work on that sciatica. Well, they're going to try to make the playoffs. This is terrible for them. This isn't about the lottery odds. So I think the same teams that are tanking now will be tanking next year. It'll just be doing it at a different time, which maybe that's just like objectively way better, because
more people are watching the NBA after the Super Bowl and Christmas anyway, right?
Right. And your product's better then. And honestly, everybody's so excited about the beginning of the season just naturally, that maybe that is when you want to sneak in a little like, oh, we don't need to watch this game because everybody's excited about all the other stuff. I don't know. It's not a perfect solution by any stretch. It's okay. I'm all right with it if this is what happens.
I don't know. I might go fiction because I don't know if the NBA has the guts to do it, or if they do it, it feels like it's going to be wins after March 1st, which are just sort of...
It'll be, late.
Like, how much does that materially change anything? Maybe accompanied with some of the draft pick limits or that they're planning on putting in place.
Or maybe they come down really hard with the fines and the violations of the player participation stuff during the stretch where normal tanking is beneficial. Maybe that's like the other edge of the sword, is they're just throwing out $500,000 fines left and right to
Do you think that would change anything?
I've already said probably not, just because, you're just, say from like the Jazz's perspective, you're buying your way to the number one pick. You're just willing to pay that price if it gets you a better shot at number one in the draft. So I don't know. I think I'm like you. There will be some shenanigans, and it'll be very strange that they're happening in November and December, and who knows how deep into the season. It's going to be off-putting.
All right. So I went fiction, you went fact. We disagreed more than we normally do. That was
contentious.
That's the most contentious this podcast has been. Time for mini stat padding. We'll do a regular length stat padding, hopefully at some point next week. But we've got there's some themes. There are streaks and scoring records that are being thrown around. So let's see if we can go through some of them. I will start with this one for you, Grant. I believe we have a joint one we could do, but I have this one for you. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander broke Wilt Chamberlain's consecutive 20-point scoring streak for the regular season only by clearing the 126 game threshold. There have been 12 other players that have had 20-point streaks in the regular season that have lasted at least 50 games. How many of them can you name? I will give you 3 strikes.
All right. Well, we'll go usual suspects to start. I assume Jordan did it at least once.
Jordan actually did it twice.
Okay. I meant DeAndre.
He counts as only one player.
Did you think I meant Michael Jordan? I was talking about DeAndre. We'll just take Michael Jordan then. Thanks for the bonus.
Happy accident by you. Good stuff.
LeBron, I'm going to guess.
That is strike 1.
What? Oh, what a bum. Overrated. Okay. Whoa. Did you? So it's since Wilt. So we're talking. We could
No,
have
no,
a
it's other than Shea.
other than Shea. Oh,
So you
so okay.
have a gimme.
So Wilt.
Correct. Do you know how many times he did it?
Like I don't know, entire seasons plus. I don't a lot.
Four times. And one of the craziest Wilt stats I've heard, hat tip Iron Eagle, is so his streak did span through the playoffs, but when he got to game 127, he was ejected 3 minutes in or whatever it was, and that's why he ended up. And then he proceeded to, after that game, then go on a 92 game streak. So he could have hit like, where I don't even remember what was the actual streak it was after that.
126 or something like that.
His streak was 126, but then he went on a 92 game streak immediately after he got ejected. So he probably
probably had 19 points in those 3 minutes. So it was really close. Based on the way things worked back then.
So you have two with one strike.
We got Wilt, we got Jordan. I'm tempted to go way back again. And just, I'll maybe, am I burning a strike here? I'll say Oscar Robertson.
That is correct. You aren't burning anything. He did it once for 79 games.
Oh, it's pretty close to burning it. If LeBron didn't do it, I'm still going to say Kevin Durant.
He did it twice.
Okay. Let's see who else. Just there's got to be. Surely Harden did it in Houston.
He did it once.
Okay.
57 games.
How many do I have left?
You have gotten 5 of the 12. So there are 7
left.
There's
12. There's no way we're getting to 12. Who else had a bunch of 20-point games in a row? I can't believe
you're missing
LeBron
one fairly obvious one.
Kareem.
That is correct.
All right. Okay. So now we're halfway there. I can fail and feel okay about it. Who else would just constantly get 20? How about Carmelo?
That is incorrect. Strike 2.
That's unfortunate. There's probably somebody further back that I need to be thinking about. Did Jerry West do it?
He did. He did it once. He's the last inclusion on this list, by the way. 52 game streak.
Ooh, just barely. Okay. How about now? Like Shea, you can miss games, right? Because he missed the streak extends. It just matters for games you played.
Correct.
Did Joel Embiid do it?
That is incorrect. Strike 3. Okay. So the names you missed: Elgin Baylor did it twice. Kobe did it once. Allen Iverson did it once. Bob McAdoo did it once. And George Gervin did it once.
Okay. Gervin, I thought about. Kobe is the one I like. That's stupid.
That's still just sort of, I mean, it's a long streak. That was hard.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Hey, and good one. What else you got?
Did you want to take us through the Kobe streak or which Kobe record might fall?
Okay. So, Dan, recently, I don't know if you heard about this. Bam Adebayo broke Kobe Bryant's post-Wilt record of 81 points. 83. Yeah, no, I know.
Ethically or unethically?
Well, there's some debate on that. Do you want to do 20 minutes on that? And how?
Sure.
Yeah, opinions differ, I guess. So that makes me wonder what other historic marks by Kobe Bryant are going to fall, if any. And maybe I'll just run through them, and you can just give me, let's say, yes or no, and then you could nominate the player. I would say.
Okay.
So Kobe has the modern era record with 4 straight 50-point games. Is that one going to fall, and who's going to break it?
That one's going to fall at some point. And if we're looking at active players that I think are most likely, I would nominate Shai.
Yeah.
The level of like he's on a great team, and maybe they wouldn't play him in garbage time, but the level of offensive dependence is, he might just, if he gets to 40, they might just keep him in there. So I could see him, if he got 2 straight 50-point games, which I actually think he's done before. If he's anywhere close, like on the 3rd and then get to the 4th, I think they would keep him in there.
I would nominate, I think Shea is probably the right pick. I do think it will fall. I mean, Anthony Edwards jumps to mind as someone that might be able to do it. I don't know why. I mean, Luka is another one that could just, like next year, if his role is somehow even bigger, that's a real possibility. Steph, like he had a couple like high 40s against the Spurs this year. It's I just throw him out there as someone. I can imagine it being someone that runs incredibly hot from three. Because man, it's gonna be hard to do that.
That's why Edwards is a good. Steph would be a better one if he wasn't gonna turn 38,
Right.
like right after we recorded this.
Right.
But Edwards would be a good one because he has the 3-point volume and the foul drawing ability. Where Shai is, the 3-point volume is like kind of there, but it's kind of not. Whereas Edwards is more likely to take 10 plus 3-point attempts in a game for sure.
All right. Kobe is the oldest player to score at least 60 points in a game. He did it at age 37 and 234 days. So is somebody older than that going to get 60? And if so, who would that be?
Yes, I'm calling my shot. Steph Curry will do it before he retires. Done.
I mean,
book it.
It's like I feel better about that one than almost probably any other on here. KD, like he's. I mean, that's a strong one.
As long as he doesn't have to play in crunch time in that Rockets, I think it'll be fine.
Right. The problem is he has to do it 2 points at a time, and that's just hard. That's a lot of field goals. All right, I think that's a pretty straightforward one. All right, Kobe is the youngest All-Star ever at age 19 and 170 days. Beatable?
Before the NBA gets rid of the one and done rule? I don't know.
This one feels pretty safe.
Yeah, I think it's going to stand. I think the NBA needs to change the draft rules for that because even if someone would Cooper Flag have qualified, and even if he did, like he's getting voted in as a reserve if it happens, or I guess Wemby could he because coaches gravitate towards players with experience, so you almost need to do it as a starter.
And like I think the fan vote being diminished is a huge barrier to this ever getting broken.
Right.
Like you could imagine there's a real world where Cooper Flag got voted into the All-Star game this year if fan vote counted for as much as it used to. But by the way, Cooper Flag right now is younger than Kobe was in his first All-Star game. He's still
so maybe
younger.
It is more beatable. There's like if AJ DeBinsa just comes in and lights, I don't even know how old he is. But
well, you'd have to have guys like Flag reclassified, so he kind of is a year younger than he's supposed to be.
Okay,
it feels like most kids are going the other way, where they're doing 8th grade twice, as opposed to jumping ahead a year for athletic purposes. So that one, I think that one might hold up. How about this one? Among guards all time, Kobe's 33,643 points, 8,378 free throws, and 4,010 turnovers are records. Are any of those going to fall among guards? So it's not,
the points. I think the points will fall at some point. I don't know who you're going to, I mean, could Luka get there? We're going to consider him a guard. It feels like that will have to fall at some, especially unless the NBA does something to rein in 3-point volume. Wouldn't you think that's the one most likely to fall? And I guess by extension, you could say free throws would fall then too. But
Harden right now is like 4,500 points away. So we're talking a couple more good seasons from Harden, and he's there.
Oh, he's going to do it then. Yeah.
So
okay.
I mean, maybe as he slows down even more, it'll take 3 to 4. But if he plays right up to age 40, he can get there. Westbrook's not going to catch him. He's at 27,000. DeRozan's not getting there. Steph's too far away, I think. Yeah, so it's probably going to be Harden, and then we're going to be waiting for like the Anthony Edwards class, and because maybe Shai. I don't know. Shai feels like he got too late of a start.
Do you not think Luka will get there?
Is he? I guess he's a guard. Luka might get there. I'm not of the mind that Luka's going to have Luka's not playing until 38. I don't think, and I mean he's got a head start because his career average is 29, so he's averaged, but he only has 2 2,000 point seasons, and he might get a third this year. So you've got to rack up the 2,000 point seasons to get.
You're saying Nico was right.
I think Nico was correct about Luka's durability and habits and leadership. All right, this is the last one I have. Kobe Bryant has 16,161 career points at Staples Center. That is the most points by any player in an arena, in a single arena. Is anybody going to break that, and who might it be?
Now, does the name of the arena changing, does that matter at all?
I would say no.
Okay.
I would say I guess it's almost more like is somebody going to get more than 16,161 at home for their career, I guess.
Wow, so and what about, so how do you take the case of Steph, who goes from Oracle, then it's a different arena? So that's a different arena.
Well,
It doesn't.
I mean, just to put it in perspective, Steph's at like 23,000 points for his career. So if he's an even split, he's still like 5,000 points short, even if you give him both arenas. So, I mean, yeah, I want to hear what you think about this one.
You kind of need to pick someone who's going to spend their entire career with one team.
That's the other thing,
right?
Which is like,
what about Jokic and Ball Arena?
That's an interesting one. Did he get an early enough start? Let's just look up what his career total's at. He's barely 1,000 ahead of Kobe's home total for his career. Jokic is at 17,673. If you evenly split that, give him 9,000 points. So he's got to score 7,000 more points at home. So that's probably like 14,000 more points for his. I mean, good luck, buddy. I don't think he's got
and LeBron
it. I mean,
split his career in too many different places to even be on that.
We're back to Edwards again. I think Edwards keeps coming up. But
does Tatum have a chance?
Tatum's an interesting one. I didn't think about him. Losing an entire season for the most part definitely doesn't help. Kobe never really had anything quite like, well, till towards the end of his career, obviously had the same injury. So Tatum is sitting at, how many career points do you think Tatum has? Knowing that Kobe scored 16K at Staples, whole career for Tatum.
9,000.
It's only you because of the way I framed the question, you went lower than you should have. But 13,000 career points for Tatum. This is his age 27 season. He's not doing it. I don't think there's any way. I don't think this one gets broken. I think mainly because you need to be on one team for a ridiculous number of years. I think that's the real barrier.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's the toughest one.
It might be, right? Because the 50 pointers might go. Oldest to score 60. That's definitely going to get broken. Youngest All-Star. That's up there too.
I think if the NBA ever changes the one and done rule, it'll
then maybe
get
we're
broken.
back. Maybe we got a shot. Yeah. All right,
that was good and hard.
Kobe-centric.
Are you ready to take us out of here, though?
Yeah. Thanks everybody for listening, for watching. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Join our Discord. Links for that in the YouTube and podcast description. Got a mailbag episode coming up soonish. Time to submit. Do that on our Discord, or I don't know.
Yeah, it's been delayed, so you have until you might have another week to get your questions in. We got a bunch of good questions, but go submit more if you haven't already.
Tell your friends, tell your enemies. Shouts, Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.